Hi guys, this is my favorite part of the video where andrewtate talks about the God. As a man, we all have strength to do things that could change our lives, but we don't. Well, listen to this.
What is your responsibility to God?
I think God wants me to be the best possible version of myself. I think that God dislikes people who are lazy. I said this to somebody once and he got very offended. I said, God doesn't like lazy people. God has created you and he wants to see the absolute best you can be. I think that if you don't take care of yourself, God has no interest in taking care of you. If you have a Ferrari on the drive and you don't take care of it, who's going to take care of it? Nobody. I think that taking care of yourself and being the best possible version of yourself you can be is how you please God. I think that's one of the best ways to praise him, is to wake up every day and say, I need to be the strongest, smartest, fastest, most fearsome, most stoic, most capable man I can possibly be. This is how I please God. So I think your duty to God is also these things. And that's another massive source of strength that I get. When I'm alone in a jail cell, I understand that God is still watching. And God would be unhappy if I couldn't handle it. I don't think, maybe we can talk about God, or we can also talk just about basic cosmic balance. I don't believe you can become the most famous man on the planet calling yourself the top G without the universe testing if you're really about it. I don't think you're going to get to a point where the universe, whatever you want to call it, is going to say, is he really the top G? Yeah. And you're going to have to prove it. If you walk through life and say, I'm made of iron, I'm Mr. Tough Guy, sooner or later someone's going to check you and find out if you are or not. Right. So when I was doing this for a very long time, I wasn't ignorant to the fact that something's going to come along and see if I am who I am. So when I'm sitting in a jail cell by myself with cockroaches all over the floor, I'm like, okay, this is my chance to show I'm not full of shit. Right. Was I full of shit? No, I wasn't. Am I going to allow everything I've ever said and my last name and my duty to God and everything to go down the pan, or am I going to just man up and fucking win? Right. So I saw it, I guess, to a degree as an opportunity, but there was a massive burden of responsibility on me on how I had to perform. I didn't have time to be depressed or sad. This is what I'm saying to you earlier. I didn't have time. I had things to do. Top G's kids can't eat. Top G's women can't pay the bills. Top G's business is over. No, I had to fix all of it from jail and fix myself and get out. I was very busy inside of my brain staring at a wall. So I didn't have time for this. And this is another thing I try and explain to people, and I don't understand about, and I talk about men specifically because I understand how to be successful as a man. When men say to me they're depressed, with unlimited options, with the capability to become anything you desire, with God giving you a full and able body and mind, how do you have time to be depressed? You have so much you could do. There's so much that you need to do to be your best self, and you're competing against men like me, and you're finding hours a day to be sad? No wonder you're going to perpetually lose forever. Right. That's suicide. So how do you find time to do this? It's brutally ineffective. You have a brain, you have a mind, you have a mental model. You can't think of everything. You can't do everything. You can only have certain frameworks instilled inside of your mind. As a man, you should be hyper-competitive. You should try and be the best version of yourself you can be. You're competing against every other man on earth for the girl you want, the car you want, the house you want, the watch you wear. It's all competition. You should be as competitive as you possibly can. Anything that's inside of your mind which doesn't allow you to be competitive should be erased. This is why I can't name a weakness. I can't name a weakness I have. I've compensated so heavily for any weakness that may exist, I don't even see them anymore.
Is your belief in God tied into this concept that we talked about, that what's useful is more important than what's true, or better than what's true? So we don't, do we know that God exists? I mean, we don't know. Correct. But it's useful to believe in God. That's
a very good question. I think that believing in God certainly makes you more powerful, which is proof for God. If God makes you more powerful, then God is real. So maybe that's very simplistic, but if I believe in God and I'm a more powerful version of myself because I believe in him, then he must exist. Yes. God has made me more powerful.
Well, it's the act of believing him that makes him exist, which is another way of saying what you just said.
Correct, yeah. So this is why I believe faith is such an important thing. But I think everybody has a God anyway. Yes. There's no such thing as atheists. If you look at the people who say, oh, I don't believe in God, they worship a flag and a vaccine. Yeah. So everyone believes in something. Yeah. So you have to decide what your religion is. And I, once again, refuse to believe in anything that takes away power from me. I believe in things that make me more powerful. And I believe that believing in God gives you a new degree of strength. And I also think everybody to some degree believes in God. I don't care what anybody says. If you put anyone in that submarine just before it imploded, everyone would pray. Yeah. Everyone. So it's ignorant to even say you don't believe in God at this point.
It's interesting that you chose Islam, and I heard you talk a little bit about how you see God in Islam as kind of, I don't know how harsh this, but like firm and directional and clear, and this is right and this is wrong, which sounds a lot like your dad.
Well, it sounds a lot like life.
Yeah, like life.
There's right and wrong in life. All this complete subjectiveness, this mush they're trying to create, is done on purpose to confuse us. I like the idea of right and wrong. I like the idea of not having a choice. If you're hungry and you walk in to buy a sandwich and there's 100 sandwiches, it takes 10 minutes. If there's one sandwich, isn't life easier sometimes? So all this subjectiveness and all this choice and all this garbage, sometimes when I'm like, okay, I want to be a good person, I want a framework to adhere to that makes me a good person. Well, this is very clear. Yes, no, easy.
Do you have like embodied experiences of God? Like, do you relate to God in that way? I don't want to say supernatural, but like, do you feel God?
I absolutely feel him, and there's certain times where I may feel particularly energetic.
When do you feel God?
So usually when I'm feeling powerful. There's been times I was in jail and I just got up and I just felt like, you know what, like just shadow boxed a bit. I don't know. It's like you just felt it. Like I'll be okay. I will win. I don't feel God when I'm sad or something like that. I think that the whole idea of spirituality, and I believe God himself, he wants the best for you. And it's interesting, how we're tying religion to my worldviews, because my worldviews were the same before religion. I guess before it was the cosmos or just the way the universe works or light, dark, yin, yang, etc. I still say these things, but now I attribute a lot more of it to spirituality, a lot more of it to God. And I chose Islam because it's firm, and I believe that I'm a person with firm principles. So I'm obviously going to liken myself, or I'm going to feel an affinity to a religion that has firm principles, because that's who I am as a person. I'm a person who's principled, yes, no, and I have no problem with people sitting with me and saying, what you're saying is bigoted, or what you're saying is wrong, or what you're saying is insensitive. I think Islam also has a similar issue.
Yeah, I think you also chose the winning team.
Oh, it's completely the winning team. It's the winning team. And it's the winning team, and I didn't choose it because it's the winning team. It's just the winning team because it has principles.
Yeah, I agree.
And unfortunately, when you have no principles, if you don't believe in it, if you have no hard line, if you'll accept anything, then you don't believe in anything. As soon as you'll accept anything, then you have no hardcore beliefs. If you have any set of principles or you have any things you believe in, there's going to end up being a barrier, and the people who fall outside of those barriers are going to be offended by it. That's the reality of it. If you have a religion or a belief system that doesn't offend anybody, then it's not a religious or belief system. That's my view. So I chose the winning team because I think more and more people are starting to understand how important God is in society. This is the first time in human history we're testing society without God. And what do we have? We have evil. We have Satanism. We have degeneracy. And I think that most people are starting to understand that God is really needed. When I was young, I used to make fun of Bible bashers. I used to make fun of them. And now I'm like, we need more. Where are they? We need more Bible bashers. So, and I guess I certainly feel more powerful since I've reverted, but I always felt powerful anyway. But I guess now, instead of just believing it's the cosmic nature of the universe, let me change that. I always felt a strong affinity to my last name and my ancestors. So I always had to a degree, a spiritual aspect to where I got my strength. I always felt like, well, my dad is watching me, or my ancestors tried very hard for me to be born, so I can't disappoint them. So I've always had this spiritualistic side. Like, imagine the disappointment my ancestors would feel if they fought saber-toothed tigers and survived World War II and went through all the garbage they went through just for my father to be born, and then he suffered like he suffered to raise me, for me to be raised and become the most famous man in the world and call myself top G and then cry when I went to jail. What am I? What kind of bitch? What am I going to go, wah? No, I go to jail with my head held high, and if they put me in jail for the next 20 years, I'll walk in there with my head held high. And if anybody sees me, I'm not going to be a broken man. I refuse to be a broken man. It's disrespectful to everybody who ever died or tried hard for me to be raised, for me to emerge from this difficulty as a broken person. That's absolutely and utterly selfish. When a man sits and says to me he's broken or he's depressed or he's sad, etc., that's selfishness. You have shit to do. And you have people to be respectful to, including people who are no longer here. I don't have time. They can put me in solitary confinement for 20 years, and when I walk out of there, and the first podcast I do, I refuse to be called broken. I refuse. And that's because I feel like I had a duty to my ancestors. And now I feel like I have a duty to my ancestors and a duty to God. So I've always felt that.
And I assume you feel like you're fulfilling your duty, that your father would be proud of you?
I absolutely believe he'd be extremely proud of me. And I think I'm doing the best I can possibly do. And there's something that people say, you tried your best. And that's true. But a lot of people overuse it. People say, oh, well, you didn't get it, but you tried your best. 99% of the time, they didn't try their best. People don't actually try very hard for things anymore. I am truly, genuinely trying my best. I don't waste a minute of my day. Before this podcast, as I set up cameras, I'm working. I don't waste a minute of my day. I do not miss a training session. I do not miss an email. I do not make mistakes. I'm on it. So I'm trying my absolute best. If I fail for the first time in human history, then I failed. But at least I get the satisfaction in my heart of knowing I actually really tried my best. Most people don't get to get that satisfaction because they know deep down they could have tried a bit harder. Whereas if I end up in jail, I'll be like, Andrew, you did everything you could have done. So that gives you a level of peace. I did my best. My ancestors are proud of me. God is proud of me. I did my absolute best. I couldn't have possibly done better. And I got hit with a lucky punch, and that's life. And all I can do is just smile regardless.
Are your oration skills, is that an art, do you think?
I think that if you don't have the ability to make other people understand exactly what you think, that you're going to struggle.
But is it an art? Like when I watched you with PBD and you got in these zones, and you do it all the time. I mean, you're doing it right now. You get in these zones where it's just like you're just flowing. I mean, it's almost, you can say it's a God state, right? It's a flow state, and it must feel really good.
It does.
Yeah, like
it feels good that you never run out of things to say, and it feels good that I already have 10 things I want to say lined up before I say the first ones.
And you know how to say them perfectly, and your voice is clear and resonant, and you're embodied in it.
It's a skill.
It's a skill. Well, but it's almost like an art, because I was watching you and I was thinking, this is like watching, Charlie Parker play the sax or Michael Jordan play basketball. I mean, you really, and people might say, oh, those are exaggerations, but I don't think so. I don't know that I've seen somebody who's able to do what you do.
But that's emotional. So we'll talk about how I'm actually quite a sensitive person.
Yeah.
I think the reason people believe what I say is because they can feel that I feel when I talk.
Yes.
And it's because I feel things.
Yes.
So I'm not a cold person at all. I'm just a person with a lot of emotion that I try and control and channel in the correct directions. But I think that, yes, it's a superpower to a degree.
Well, I think that's why one of the reasons that people are so drawn to you, because you let whatever wants to come through.
And it's also why so many people hate me.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Because there's no light without dark.
Yeah.
There's no joy without pain. You can't have a rainbow without little rain. That's how it goes. So I think that it's definitely a superpower for life. It's something I'd encourage every man to learn how to do. Yeah. It's certainly something worth practicing. It's the reason I don't learn another language, because I haven't mastered English yet. Right. So I refuse to learn another language. Yeah. I can't imagine me and my personality and Andrew Tate stuttering in Spanish. It just be like, what is this garbage? Yeah. Yeah. So I don't have time. Yeah. So I will only speak English for the rest of my human years. That's it, because I have not learned every word in the dictionary yet. Yeah. But yeah, I guess to a degree it's a superpower. It's extremely beneficial in all aspects of life, especially relationships. I'm not going to lie. I don't argue with women very often, because any woman who respects me and listens to me, I can very quickly and compendiously explain exactly why I'm correct.
It's maybe the most powerful skill.
The most powerful thing about it is there's two levels to it. One, making people understand exactly what you think. Yes. And the second one is making them think what you think. Right. And if you can do the second one.
Do you like to make people think what you think? Because you have a lot of influence. Yeah. And that's got to feel good. You're influencing people. You have this worldview. It's a powerful worldview. It's got all these things. And so you want to influence other people in some way to adopt that.
I think that charity, even of itself, I think charity is probably one of the most selfish things you can do, which most people say, I'm giving money. I give $25 million a year. There's a website, tatepledge.com, you can see it. And I feed children all across war-torn countries, mainly in the Islamic world and in Africa. Am I doing that for the children? Yes. But I also feel great. I feel good for doing that. Of course. Yeah. So it's not a selfless act.
No, nothing selfless.
Nothing selfless.
And it shouldn't be.
And it shouldn't be. That's right. So when I'm helping all these people out here, I'm not doing it because I'm some philanthropist. I feel good helping people and people sending me emails saying, you changed my life. I feel good about it. I'm not going to sit here and pretend I'm just Mr. Philanthropist and I just care about the world. No, I like helping people because I feel good about doing it. It makes me feel good inside, which is why I do it. So yeah, I use my power to feel good. And I think the easiest way to feel good is to make others feel good. I believe that humans exist that way, and I think that's why we're societal animals. Even in jail, when I felt my worst, my goal was to make someone else smile. Because if I can make someone else smile, I would smile. So if on my worst days, I was my most charming, my most energetic, my most interesting, my most talkative.
Yeah.
I was happiest on my worst day because I decided that's how I have to be to stop myself feeling bad, because I decided. I also feel like, you know, it's kind of interesting. No one's emotionless, and I certainly feel things. And I'm going to come up with a theory, which you're going to call complete garbage, because I am not qualified. But this is my theory.
Yeah, go for it.
I believe that emotional energy is a lot like a bucket of water. You have all this emotional energy, right? You have a bucket of water. And then you have a bunch of different holes you can pour it down. So I believe if you wake up one day and you feel particularly depressed, you don't feel depressed. You just have a lot of emotional energy that day. Some days you don't have that much emotional energy and life is pretty calm. But some days you wake up and you have this big bucket of water, and the superpower is deciding which emotion you're going to put it in. Not to not feel the energy, but to decide which emotion you're going to put it in. And I think that's my superpower. I don't have the superpower of being able to stop myself feeling things.
Yeah.
I have the superpower of being able to choose how I use that energy and what I decide to feel. And then if you want to be hyper successful as a person, you have to be very careful to avoid the happy hole. Because happy is what everyone thinks they would choose. If you had this emotional energy and could choose any emotion, you'd choose happy. But if you choose happy, you don't get much done.
What do you choose?
I choose, if I had to choose how I wanted to feel all the time, I would choose proud. And proud means you have to work. Proud means you have to do things. You have to achieve things. If you want to be proud and be realistic, you have to do fantastic things. So my default favorite emotion is proud.
Right.
That's how I'm happiest when I feel proud about anything.
Well, and the organism releases dopamine in the brain when we do hard work
Which is
and
why I
accomplish
have to win.
tasks.
I have to win all the time.
Yeah.
I love proud.
To feel good. You do it
to feel good.
Yeah.
I don't like happy. If I feel happy, giddish happiness like a child or like a females usually default to happy. They don't care how they get there. They just want to get there.
Right.
They just want to feel happy.
Right.
I avoid the happy hole because I think people who are desperate to only feel happy are the ones who are addicts, you know, gambling addicts, drug addicts, drink too much, do dumb shit. It's all temporary, no delayed gratification. That's how you destroy your life, choosing the happy hole. So we were talking earlier about jail and how when I felt particularly bad, I'd wake up with a whole bunch of emotional energy. It's unchanneled, it's a bit wild, so I guess that can be perceived as sad or depressed. You're out of your routine. So I would sit and go, okay, I have all this emotional energy today, where am I going to put it? And I'd put it in a place where perhaps on that day I might feel happy, or perhaps I'd choose something else, but I would try my very best to take all the energy and put it into a place where feeling that emotion was the most competitive emotion, or was the perfect emotion for me to be as competitive as possible in that particular scenario. So yeah, on days where I woke up and I felt a little bit sad, I'd be like, okay, I'm going to turn the charm on today. I'm going to make everybody laugh.
Right.
And by the end of the day, I felt fantastic.
Do you think God wants to break you?
If God wants to break me, he's going to do it.
Because we said, right, the hero's journey, there must be death and rebirth. So what, like something, you have to be broken. At some point, you must be broken. You can't fulfill your mission without being broken. And whatever that is, it has to terrify you.
But can't I be semi-broken or semi-close to broken and back from the edge? Back from the edge?
Death and rebirth. That's the archetype, right? And what does that require? It means going into the cave and facing your dragon, which is your deepest fear, and feeling like it's going to kill you, and then entering into the void of nothingness, and then coming out the other side, reborn. And in that place where you're reborn, you're going to know things that you did not know sitting right here. And you're going to have a much bigger perspective, right? I mean, you agree with that template, right?
I agree with it, but I feel like I can just, I don't feel like
Get around that?
Not get around it, but I don't ever have to fully die. Like I can just come close enough times. Like I'm not going to underplay. No, of course. But I'm not going to underplay how significantly difficult my jail experience was.
Yeah, because you do talk about like how tough you were, you managed it, and I guess and which is, I believe that, I'm not, but there had to be moments where you're just like,
It was terrible.
despair.
No, it was absolutely terrible.
Or fear, or like.
But this is very interesting into your death and rebirth point, because when it felt completely terrible, I do have the emotional control to not feel that. But I decided to let myself feel it because I felt like I wouldn't learn as much if I turned my brain off.
That's right.
So I've talked on PBD about Tristan. Tristan and I have the same superpower. Tristan didn't care about jail. He didn't care. He didn't, or he acted like he didn't care.
His own cope.
He acted like he didn't care. But it was his coping mechanism.
Sure.
Don't care about jail. I decided, no, I'm going to care. I'm going to feel everything. I'm going to allow myself to feel these negative emotions because I feel like I will learn more. I could have done what Tristan did. I could have woke up and said one day or later they'll let me out. Still rich, give a fuck.
Right.
Could have done that. I didn't do that. And jail, that's why he sleeps. That's why I have nightmares. Because I don't believe his jail experience was that traumatic because he turned his brain off to it. And that is a superpower.
Yes.
And I do have that power. If I went to war, I could go to war and watch all my friends be blown to pieces and still fight. Yeah. I would still be capable. I can turn my brain off if I have to, but I decided not to because I felt that feeling things would teach me more, which is why I'm kind of arguing your point about death and rebirth, because I feel like I don't have to fully break. I just have to get close enough to the edge to learn something and come back.
Why not break?
Because if I break, then there's too much. My empire might fall.
Then you don't know.
Well, exactly.
You don't know.
I don't know.
And that's scary.
It is scary.
Yeah.
So why would I?
That's why you don't want to break.
Completely.
It's scary.
I don't want to lose what I have.
Yeah.
Mentally,
But
physically, financially.
Yeah, but that attachment, what would God say to that attachment? I don't want to lose what I have.
But okay, I don't want to lose what I have because I also have a responsibility for others. Let me tell you something. If my mind broke and I couldn't come back from that.
What's more important, your family or God?
Does God want me to break? I don't know. You asked. You asked the question. And if he does, I will break.
Right.
Right?
Well,
but
you won't have a choice.
I won't have a choice. But jail itself was terrible. Like, we're talking about vulnerability. I can sit and explain all the things I struggle with in jail. It was absolutely terrible. And I think a lot of people who are watching this, I think they need to keep in mind, I wasn't in jail. I was in Romanian jail.
What's the difference?
Well, it's the poorest country in Europe, and it was built during communism,
Right.
and it's basically designed to torture you.
Cockroaches, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like jail, like we imagine jail. I don't want to insult the Romanian justice system. I don't want to insult any Romanians. I'm still within the confines of Romania, but I think most people at home understand what I'm talking about. I didn't have yard time. I didn't have any friends. I was in a room for 93 days. I did not leave that room unless I was being dragged to court in a language I didn't understand to be sent back to the room. Yeah, it was hard.
I did a 4-day vision quest, 4 days, 4 nights, no food or water, out in the mountains, like in a restricted area, like just like a prison cell. And that took me to my edge. So I can't even imagine 93 days.
Yeah, I mean, it's terrible. And you don't know how long you're going to be in there for.
Yeah.
And you have no control over anything. And you don't sleep very well. People think you just sleep it off, but you can't. The jail is very loud. There's a lot of distressed people in there, a lot of upset people. The energy is sad. Yeah, it's a bad place to be. But I knew that my only option was to deal with it. So I knew that not handling it wasn't an option. So if not handling it, it's not an option, the only option left is handling it. So you just have to find the best way to do it. Yeah. And I certainly allowed myself to feel a lot of emotions in there that I could have probably blocked out so that I could learn as many lessons as possible. And I've learned a lot of things. But I would say that, I mean, all in all, I understood as a man, you need to have a strong body so you're not attacked by anyone else, and a strong mind so you don't attack yourself. And I think jail in many ways is just pressurized life. And if you feel a little bit angry outside of jail, you'll be very angry in jail. It's pressurized life, and you can't distract yourself with anything. Mm-hmm. Most people, if you feel angry right now, you're like, oh, that pissed me off. And then you get on your phone and talk to someone else about something else. You distract yourself, but you're left alone with your thoughts, and you can't distract yourself. And God decided to put me in there to learn some things. And I think it just confirmed a bunch of things I already knew. And I think it was a chance for me to prove to him and to prove to myself I'm not full of shit. And I think that was...
Did you worry that you were full of shit?
Never. But it's good when you get tested. No, but this is actually the truth. Top G, right? It's a name, it's a nickname, blah, 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 Top G. The basic premise behind it and why I'm idolized by all these young men especially is I'm Top G, the number one G, the guy who can do anything. He's the guy. I never for a second when I was saying it didn't mean it. I never for a second when I was saying it thought I was full of shit. Mm-hmm. So God was like, okay, let's find out if he's full of shit. Right. And I was placed there, and I said, all right, this is a chance for me to prove to myself and prove to God and prove to the man watching to the prison guards and prove to everyone else, my ancestors, that I'm not full of shit. I had a sense of duty in there, and I feel like I performed it exceptionally. And it doesn't matter if they kept me in there for 3 months or 3 years or 30 years. I have to perform. That's who I am, and I will default to rationalizing, as you said, whatever it takes. I will come up with any rationale, and I will say it in any way which is interesting and engaging and convincing enough to the outside world and to myself to install it in my brain that allows me to compete. That's just what I'm going to do, because I don't want to lose anything ever. And life, perhaps if we want to extrapolate this out, perhaps God's trying to break all of us. Maybe life is a big competition of who breaks last. I would actually argue, and I said this before, that the number one indicator of a man's success is his ability to deal with stress. I don't think it's IQ. I don't think it's physical capability. I don't think it's anything. If you take a man who can deal with a bunch of stress, he's going to be more successful than a man who can deal with less stress. How much stress you can put up with has a direct correlation to the kind of life you're going to live. Most people who want my life don't have my life because they couldn't handle my life. That's why. They go, I want to be like Tate. I want fast cars and private jets and all these girls and all these kids and all blah, blah, blah. But they couldn't handle it. They couldn't deal with the pressure of it, which is why they'll never get there, because even if they get anywhere near it, they'll have a mental breakdown. So how big your life is and how successful you are in the physical realm is directly linked to how much stress you can deal with. And perhaps God's trying to break all of us, and he's trying to find all of our limits. I think most people at home watching this probably have something going on in their mind right now, or something going on in their lives that might break them. To me, it would be nothing. To them, it's a big deal. So God's out here to break all of us, and I want to be the guy who breaks last.
Well, maybe he's trying to make us stronger, give us tests to help us evolve, to help us grow, to help us know him more.
Absolutely. So let's assume that's what God is doing. To a degree, he's trying to see where all of us would break. You have two responses to that. You can either be intimidated by the fact that God is out there trying to make your life difficult, or you can be excited by the idea of it and saying, this is my chance to prove myself to God. Which is what I was saying earlier on in the very beginning of our podcast, why I've adopted the mindset where struggle is semi-exciting to me. God is out here trying to ask me questions or put me through scenarios where I get to prove myself to him, and perhaps that's why all the bad things happen. Maybe that's why that girl left you. Maybe that's why he made you love her so much, so that she could break your heart and fuck your best friend on purpose, so that to see how close you could come to breaking. Maybe that's what it's all about. Maybe that's the fun of it.
The mantra that I use is, yes, thank you. Whatever comes, yes, thank you. And yes is an acceptance to God, and thank you is gratitude for what's happening. And that mindset is a kind of surrender to God's will. Do you struggle between, your will is very strong. And I can feel the place where you like to impose your will in the world. So your will versus God's will.
Well, he'll win.
Are you in a fight with God on some level, like not literally, but unconsciously, between his will and your will?
No, I think I am doing his will. I think I am doing his will, which is what it takes to be truly successful in the world. I do believe that the moral arc of the universe does bend towards truth. And that's not my saying. I think that's Martin Luther King's. But I think that it bends towards truth and justice in the end. I think that the battles we are currently fighting in society, which look hopeless, in the end can be won. And I feel like I am doing his will by standing up and telling the truth. I think I'd have to be a complete coward of a man to end up having all of the masculine youth of a planet paying attention to every word I say, and then say, oh, but if I tell them good things, if I help them and help the world by extension, I might get in trouble. That'd make me a bitch, and that's not who I am. So I think if you give any man worth his salt that degree of power and influence and responsibility, he's going to stand up and say, okay, this is how you should live as a man, and this is how you can make the world a better place, unless he's afraid of the repercussions by the evil people, by the people who are on the other side, who are genuinely evil and satanic, who are out to destroy good and truth. And I'm not a coward. I've never seen myself as a coward. And in fact, we don't talk about vulnerability. The number one thing I could never exist as is a coward. I think you want to talk about my biggest fear. It would be knowing I'm a coward, seeing myself as a coward, and being very realistic and knowing I was actually a coward. I couldn't accept that, because I feel like I would be disappointing all of my ancestors and God, and I would have been full of shit all the time I was talking. Now I'm a fake. Now I'm a liar. And I'm none of those things. When I say to the camera and I sit here and talk about depression not being real, I mean what I say, because I've lived enough shit to tell you that if depression was real, I would have been depressed. And people know that, which is why they listen to me in the first place. I would hate to look in the mirror and know I acted like a coward on that scenario. I can't be that person.
Right.
So
Courage is the highest virtue, I think.
you think so?
Courage, love.
Well, I like to think of myself as a man with plenty of love in his life and a very loving man. I also like to think of myself as an extremely brave person. I've never been a coward. And even just the idea of being a coward is enough to motivate me to do nearly anything. So if you were to try and, here we go, vulnerability. If you were to try and manipulate me, how could you manipulate Andrew Tate, one of the smartest people on the face of the planet? Well, you would have to try and convince him that it was the only brave act. That's how I could be manipulated.
Interesting.
Now, I allow manipulation to find out where my enemy wants me to go, use my mind to break the trap, punish the perpetrators. I will allow them to manipulate me, and at the end of their attempt, I will decide whether I agree with their attempt or I destroy their attempt.
Right.
But that would be give you the best possible chance. And I give you a perfect example of it. COVID, when on day one, when everyone got locked in their houses and they were talking about Italian hospitals being full and people were dying on the street in China, when everyone believed because it was brand new, day one, me and Tristan decided to fly to Sweden and just run around in nightclubs because it's the only open country. Did we do that because we have medical expertise? Did we do that because we were guaranteed to not get sick? Did we do that because we knew something other people didn't know? It was the brave choice. The brave choice is to go do something reckless. We might all die. Let's die in a nightclub in Sweden instead of dying in our house. So we always have chosen and defaulted to the brave choice. And part of me, maybe when we talk about excitement, I love when God or life or the universe or whatever you want to call it gives me a chance to be brave. I love when he gives me an opportunity. Here's your chance to be brave, Andrew. Here is your chance to show you are that guy. Here's your chance to have another story where everyone else would have failed, you would have succeeded. Here is your chance to win. I love that because, you know, it's easy to fly around on private jets and stay in 5-star hotels with a bunch of beautiful women and drive Bugattis around. Cool. But where's the point where I get to actually prove I mean every word I say?
Right.
So God gave it to me. So yes, thank you. I agree. We agree. Thank you. And if God decides I have to go back, then the best mental model I can have is not the Romanian system of justice is unfair. It's corrupt. I got too big. The Matrix got me. No, the best mental model is God wants me to learn something here. And he's going to teach me that through suffering. He's going to make this difficult, and he's going to make me feel pain, and he's going to make this as hard as he decides it needs to be so that I can sit here and learn things. So I'm going to go and sit with my cockroach friends, and I'm going to learn. I already learned things. I can tell you a bunch of things I learned. Even physical things. I would hunt cockroaches in the dark. At night, I would stand to kill them. I'd stand near the wall and I'd measure out a palm strike directly, exact measurement, so I didn't hurt my elbow or my hand, to the wall. And I'd just sit and just wait. And I'd hear them crawling. And in nearly pitch black, I could hear one in front of me. Bam! I got to the point where I could kill them. Ninja for real. I was like, I'm learning shit in here.
Right.
So that was fantastic. I learned.
Did you learn anything about yourself?
This is again
New information. That's all. I mean, you must have, right? I mean, you had a new experience, so there must be new information. I mean, you got tested, right? You're in jail, for fuck's sakes. Like, something must have popped into your mind. There must have been some revelation, some edge that you came to. It had to be, no?
I'm exactly who I thought I was. I am 0% full of shit. I'm exactly who I thought I was.
0% full of shit?
If you would have told me before I went,
like 0.1,
before I went to jail, before they put me in that dungeon, in the dark, with the cockroaches, if you would have told me how I would react to that scenario, I would have said to you, I would have suffered and it wouldn't have been nice, but I would have refused to break, and I would have been the kind of person who sat there and endured and emerged more powerful than ever before. That's what I would have said.
Yeah.
And that's what I've done.
Yes, yes.
That's exactly what I've done.
Yes.
So,
But that's not the question.
no, it's not. There may be a side order of nightmares. I learned, I've never had nightmares before in my life. That surprised me. But they're here now. That's life. I learned that, I guess. I learned that when I got out of jail. I didn't have nightmares in jail, which is strange. I had nightmares when I got out. Maybe it's fear of going back. Don't know.
Yeah.
But what else did I learn about myself? I had already pre-decided And I'd already told the universe how I would act in said scenario. This scenario was not a scenario I hadn't discussed or didn't believe could happen to me. I had already analyzed, if this happens, what are you going to do? It was a pre-designated plan. And I just followed the plan I had already laid out for myself when I had already psychoanalyzed myself without my qualifications. I had already decided what I must do, so I did it. And I was able and capable of following the plan and following through. So I'm not a liar. I'm 0% full of shit.
Right. I hear you. I hear you.
And if I was full of shit, I would sit here.
Nightmares though, but there's something. It's not full of shit, but just the something happened.
Oh, completely.
Right, because you're having nightmares now. So something is going on.
Yes.
That you don't like
understand.
That's all I'm getting.
That's completely true. I performed exactly how I needed to perform and how I knew I would perform. So when I talk about being top G and mental control and depression is not real, everything I say is true. I performed exactly as I could. And I should. There is a side effect, which happens to be these nightmares. But my attitude towards the nightmares is, yes, thank you. Good. I don't want them to go away. They will go away when whatever needs to be dealt with is dealt with by my own mind. And like I said, if anyone else could fix them for me, I would not allow them to, because I believe it is my lesson and it's my pain and my trauma and it's mine to deal with. And if I have to keep them forever, I'll keep them. I am not afraid of feeling negative. I'm not afraid of it. I'm not afraid of having nightmares. I don't wake up going, I want to feel good. I don't care. So if I have to feel miserable, it doesn't bother me. I don't see why. In fact, I'm going to change that. I don't see how you can put such importance on how you feel as a man, because it makes you non-competitive.
Well, but it makes you, what it does is it brings you into presence. And presence is the most powerful quality that you can have as a human being. And if you are not in touch with your feelings, if you disown them or you rationalize them in some way, you're not fully present.
Completely agree.
Right? So the reason we want to connect with the places we have fear or pain or sadness, right, or anger, whatever it is, it's not to feel it and let ourselves be a slave to it. It's just to let it come into our conscious awareness to know what it is. There's information there. It's data, right? And if we can be present with all that we feel, right, we're much more powerful beings.
Now, it's super interesting you said that, because you're right. Because I wouldn't consider myself a present person. I am always thinking about what must be done. I'm thinking about
interesting.
Always.
That you would confess that. You're not a present person.
No, I'm not present. If I'm present in the moment, I'm either on my computer talking to someone else millions of miles away, or dealing with something else, or I'm doing this podcasting about how I have to spar afterwards, and then I've got a friend coming at 8:15 tonight. I have to see. I'm not present because things must be done and they must be organized. I am not competitive if I'm present. I need to do things. Now I'll agree with you. You're right. I'm very rarely present.
But here's my frame for presence, right? The reason I'm not all the way present, which is all the way here, is because there's something here that I don't want to feel.
No, I would say there's two scenarios in which I am very present. And we'll talk about them in a second. But I'm not a very present person. But I have sacrificed the idea of feeling presence and feeling happy in the moment for, let's say, absolute capability and legacy.
But would you agree that being more present would give you more power?
In certain scenarios. Well, look, I think that might be the reason I love fighting so much, because that's the only time I feel present.
Right.
Because I have to be right there, because one, I'm in pain, and two, if I'm not, I'm going to be asleep.
Are you not present right now?
I am.
Are you present with me?
I'm paying attention. My brain's on. I'm paying attention.
Let your brain go and see what happens. Just be here with me and don't stop thinking. Stop thinking.
I can't stop thinking.
Stop thinking. You can't stop thinking. If you can't stop thinking, you don't have control over your mind.
All right, cool. So I stopped thinking, but...
and just be in the place where there's no thinking.
Sure.
And just feel yourself, who you are, and see what happens.
Yeah, and I believe I am, but I'm saying generally in life, I wouldn't consider myself a present person. I'm not the person who is enjoying the moment. But I am now, because I'm focused. But now I'm focused.
But do you see the difference in the quality of the interaction we just had?
But okay, let me ask you a question.
Do you see the difference, though?
I do.
Yeah, and how did that feel?
It felt fine, but what's the difference? Fine. What's the difference? But what's the difference?
But weren't we more connected in some way? Isn't there more possibility to get to something deeper or something more truthful there when your mind is not constantly running?
But I haven't lied to you.
I'm not saying you've lied to me.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you've lied to me. I just said there's other levels, there's other layers, right?
Is there?
Is there? You get to it. That's why you fight. It's what you said, because it gets you out of your mind, fully in your body. And when you're fighting, you're in that zone. Some of their intelligence opens up, though.
Yes.
You're doing things. You can feel that guy, and you can miss the punch by, and you don't even know why.
Correct.
right? And so that is available all the time if you're willing to get present.
Does life require that degree of focus?
Not focus, presence.
I know they're slightly different. Maybe I see them as the same. I don't see myself as a particularly present person. I do enjoy the presence of fighting. I do enjoy the presence of driving fast cars very fast.
Right.
I'm thinking of it, just so you understand my mental model, when I think of guys, and I do know some who are like enjoying the moment, I very rarely enjoy the moment. Does that make sense? I don't ever, I'm sitting around and I'm like, yeah, I look around and go, I'm having fun. That's just not how my brain works, ever.
That feels sad to me.
Yeah, but this is the thing. Perhaps it is. I don't know. I'm not going to say it is because I don't feel sad about it, but let's imagine it is sad. I have no fear of feeling sad. If someone were to say to me, Andrew, you're going to enjoy the moment less because you're constantly preoccupied with running an empire that most people wouldn't believe is as large as you say it is, even if you told them. And you're going to have unlimited offspring who adore you, and you're going to have unlimited female interaction from women who truly would die for you. And you're going to be one of the most respected men on the planet. And you're going to have street cred in every city from Baltimore to Berlin. And you're going to end up going through all these trials and tribulations, and they're going to talk about your name after you're dead for hundreds of years. But you're not going to be present in the moment. Would you take that? And I would say, yes, sir, I would. Give that to me. I can't be present because there's too much happening. How can I be present? How can I be present with hundreds of millions of dollars and DCOT trying to put me in jail? And how can I be present? I've got things happening in my brain. I can't be present. I've got things to deal with. I've got problems. So I've sacrificed presence.
But maybe you have a mental model that says I can't be all the way present and do all of those things, and maybe that model is incorrect.
Well, presence is if you're truly present, then you're not worried about anything outside of the moment you're in.
Not necessarily.
How does that work? I'm interested in.
Yeah, I mean, because the presence, right? You can let your consciousness go out, right? And you can be aware of everything, right?
I'm perspicacious is one of my favorite words. I am aware of what's happening.
Yeah.
I'm just not particularly interested in it. So I will sit at a table where everyone's having a conversation, and I'll sit on my laptop, and I'll chime up once every hour. I hear every word. I've analyzed every word. I know who's right. I know who's wrong. I know what I could have said. I know whose brain I could have changed, what mind I could have affected. I've already considered if it's worth doing, but I'd rather do my work, and I'll ignore it all until I pop up and say 3 words and control the entire conversation and go back to my laptop.
Yeah.
I'm aware of everything. I'm just not particularly present because I feel like I've built a life which is so large that it's hard for me to be present in the moment. I'm present with my children for an hour or two, and then it's like, okay, back to work. Right. So,
was your father present with you?
No. But I don't think. But then this again.
I'm just saying, as a psychotherapist, when somebody said that, you said that he wasn't present with you. That must have been.
That didn't bother me at all.
It didn't bother you?
No. He had things to do. He's a full-grown man.
I mean, we could talk about the haircut tweet, but I didn't understand, your history that you were raised by a single mother. Your father wasn't around. Yeah. So you see him once a year?
About that, yeah. When we lived in America up to the age of 11, I saw him more often, once or twice a month maybe, and then.
When did they split?
I was 10 when they left. But I always understood he's very busy and has a lot to do. So I never.
Can you see how the boy might interpret that as my father doesn't care about me?
No.
You can see how, I understand you sitting here right now, but you understand like a little boy.
I think a little boy
might think, where's daddy? I want daddy. I'm here alone with mom.
And he might be right because some fathers may not care. But my father did care.
Right.
He was just very busy.
But it must have been confusing for you.
No.
Not for the little boy?
No.
Like bring.
I'm being honest. I'm being honest. It wasn't. Okay. I never
or you cut off, or those feelings were so painful, overwhelming, you cut off from them so quickly and then created this mindset to deal with.
I never for a second felt like he didn't care about me, ever. I never felt that. It didn't cross my mind.
Consciously.
Consciously.
But is it possible that unconsciously you might have a different belief? And that on some level, some of what you're doing in the world is motivated by that, like wanting to win the love of your father?
I think that is semi-true, but I'll tell you, I think that's
fine.
No. That's semi-true. That's semi-true because I believe I have a duty to my ancestors. I don't think it's coming from a place of I'm broken trying to fix myself. I think I have the last name Tate. It was bestowed upon me, and I have responsibilities to live up to the last name Tate.
Yeah.
I do believe I have a duty to my ancestors. So is that trying to win the love of my father? Perhaps. I never felt unloved by my father, ever. In fact, I would argue I had the best father on earth. I never felt like I was owed all of his time. It was very clear to me at a young age that he's extremely busy and extremely important, and that I can earn his time, or that I can't have as much of it as I want.
You have to earn his time?
Yeah,
That was the...
Yeah.
A son should have to earn his father's time?
Yeah, why not?
Because he's a boy.
True.
And
So
the
I
father's love should be,
No.
at least for a boy, unconditional in some way.
Love and time are not necessarily the same thing.
Okay.
If I told my father, I want to play chess, I want you to teach me chess, he could find 2 hours. If I said to Dad, I want to play video games or let's watch TV together, he'd say, no, son, I have things to do.
Right.
So to a degree, I'd earn his time.
Yeah.
His time was valuable and it could not be wasted.
Yeah.
I feel like I have a duty to my ancestors. I don't feel like, and when I'm in jail, I feel like I can't disappoint him, and I feel like I do good for the world. I don't think this is me being some kind of broken secret. This is where we're going to disagree. You're going to think I'm some broken child inside or something. Okay, well, the inner child, or I'm guessing, but
Well, yes, inner child.
okay,
Yeah.
I don't think it's anything to
think
do
you
with
have
that.
an inner child?
I think it's duty. I think I have duty and I have honor.
Yeah, I understand you have duty as a man, but that doesn't mean the inner child is not there. And I guess that's if the inner child has been disowned in some way, or his feelings have been relegated to the unconscious, like that's impacting you, that's affecting you. And knowing what those feelings are and how they impacted you, I think would be important information for you.
But I was never sad. I can't say I had a hard childhood. I can't say I was sad. I can't say I wish he was different. Once again, and once again, let me psychoanalyze myself.
Yeah.
Once again, this might be rationale. I might be rationalizing.
Yes.
I might say, well, whatever happened made me the person I am today, and I love who I am today, so I'm glad it was the way it was. Perhaps. But once again, I think that puts me in the correct mental framework to be as capable as possible. I'm not going to sit here and say, I wish my dad did something else. What's the point? That's asinine.
Both things can be true, though. I wanted to see my father more. I wish he was there, and he wasn't. And now I'm here, and I'm going to make the best of it. And this is the result of that. And I've turned myself into this beast because of it. I mean, you made the most of the situation, but that doesn't discount the place where you may have wanted more from him. You may have wanted more love, more connection, just more time.
I think my father did the best he knew how to do, and second, he did exactly what was necessary to make me the person I am today.
Would it be okay for you to be angry with your father?
No, absolutely not.
Why
It's
not?
disrespectful.
Why not? Why?
Because he's my father.
But I'm not saying that you would have to confront him. I mean, obviously he's not here, but it's just like
That's selfish.
But if it's just a feeling, right? If it's just a feeling that wants to come,
It's ungratefulness.
well, you're judging the feeling.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah.
For me to sit and say to the man who made me the man I am today,
Yeah.
who I, once again, never felt unloved by, who tried his very best to raise me, who sacrificed for me to exist, who gave me my last name, who bestowed upon me the honors and principles and morals I live by today,
Yeah.
for me to be angry at him because he was busy some days would be brutally ungrateful. No, I'm not allowed. No, I'm not allowed. I'm not allowed that feeling. It's ungrateful. I refuse to accept it. I refuse to feel it. I truly believe I had the best father on earth. I truly believe it. I don't believe, even now, if I have sons, I don't talk about what children I have publicly, if I have sons or when I have sons or my sons I have, whichever one it is, they will get my time, sure. They will get my dedication, absolutely. But I have expectations of them because of their last name. And they're going to have my time while we're working towards something fantastic. I'm not going to just sit around with my kids just for hours because they just deserve it. There's no participation trophies in the Tate household.
Right.
And time is a trophy, and it must be earned, like everything else in life. So I'm not going to sit and have sons and go, well, he's my son, so we're just going to all day do fucking nothing. No, we're going to all day do something important. For sure. Or I'm going to go do something important. And he can sit around and do nothing by himself.
For sure, but you can also imagine if you had sons and you saw them once a year, that would have an impact on them. Like, how would you feel about that if you had sons and you only saw them once a year?
I think I'd miss them, of course. They'd miss me.
I bet your dad missed you.
Oh, completely. Absolutely.
I bet he was sad there.
Oh, completely.
And I wonder if he had self-judgment about it. I wonder if he questioned himself.
Well, I think as a man...
Because would you do that?
Well, as a man, you have to make a choice. And I think it used to be more binary than it is today because of the nature of money and empire and how things work. But as a man, you have to make a choice. You either go to war and come back with stories, or you sit at home all day and be a second mother, and then you're not a man. You have to find the balance between the two, right? Yeah. My father was away a lot, but he wasn't away a lot because he was doing nothing, right? So if you have a soldier as a father, okay, he's not there, but he's doing something. He's coming back with a story. And I think that was typical in a lot of households for a very long time. Maybe it's changed a little bit in modern times, but typically the man went away, did whatever he had to do, and then came back with a story or a hunt or whatever.
For sure.
So that's how I saw my father living his life, and that's how I want to live my life. I will do the same thing. I don't think I would be the same man if I decided to say, okay, I have a son now, so I'm just going to stay at home. And I think that I need to be a kind of man my son wants to emulate, which means I have to be a hero, and I don't think you can be a hero sitting at home. So I think that I need to, yeah, he needs time, of course he does, but he also needs an example set, and that example must be set out there in the harsh, brutal realities of the real world. So, yeah, it's time. Now the argument is quantity of time versus quality of time. And I would argue that the quality of time I will give my sons is going to be much higher than
You would want to give them that.
Oh, completely.
You'd want to give your sons more quality time than you had with your father.
I'll give them the exact same amount as he gave me.
Will you?
But if I'm happy with
Would you not want to give them more?
I may want to.
You wanted more.
I didn't say I wanted more. Oh. That's smart. I didn't say I wanted more.
You didn't? Yeah,
no.
You must have.
No, I'm saying that.
Boy wants time with his daddy. How can? I mean, it has to be true.
If I wanted it, I could have earned it anytime I wanted.
Well, are you sure about that?
I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
I mean, when we go, I mean, I don't know if we need to read the tweet, but it's like. Your mom was pretty upset with him, so he was like, I'm not coming back here. I mean, it wasn't just about you, it was about your mother.
Oh, completely. And I think my father sacrificed his marriage for us boys. He sacrificed his marriage and his relationship with my mother to ensure that us boys were taught the way he believed we should be raised. My mom was very unhappy with certain things he did, which he insisted on doing anyway because he saw his legacy in us as more important than his marriage with my mother. But I'm not saying, look, if my son calls me and says, I'm really upset, I need to talk to you, I'm not going to say, no, you can't talk to me. I'm not psycho, right? I understand all of these things. I'm just saying, obviously we're talking about a very general scenario. The general scenario is, I'm a man, I'm away at war, I come home with a story, or if I'm spending time with my son, I want us to be building him as an individual. I believe that the mother does a lot of the day-to-day keeping the child alive, changing diapers, feeding them, etc. And the man is the one who instills a lot of the mindset. And the man is the one who grows them in very important ways. And I think to do that, I need to be a man of genuine capability. And I would argue that the 2 hours a month or 2 hours a week or whatever I spent with my father, him being the man he was worth more than the 200 hours a month that most men spend with their fathers. That's why I am the man I am. So there'll be some fathers who sit and say, I could never do that to my son. Well, what can you do? You can go do fucking basically nothing with your life, pay your taxes, come home, be bitched at by your wife, be quiet about it, and be with your son all the time. Sure, you win in quantity of time, but who you are as a man and what the lessons you can really teach, you lose in quality of time. So I believe my father was such a fantastic figure that it's the quality of his time that made up for the quantity, and the only way to do that is to go out in the world and be fantastic. And we can actually extrapolate this out to other things. Let's look at relationships, for example. I see men who spend every day with their woman. That's fantastic, that's fine. That's how he elicits her love and her attention.
Are you rationalizing?
I'm completely. That's how that's how my brain works.
Yeah.
I see men who spend every day with their woman, which is fantastic. He wants to, she wants to, that's great, they're happy. She feels loved and she feels respected and she's glad she has all of his time. When you reach a certain quality of man, a certain level of man in terms of competence, a certain echelon, I don't have to spend all day with a woman. I can see a woman 1 hour a month and she'll be loyal to me because I'm me. Right. Because the quality of who I am and the quality of my time outweighs the quantity which can be offered by a lesser being. So you can put this in nearly any dynamic. You can put it in a romantic relationship and also in a family dynamic. Once you reach a certain level of competence, once you're at the highest echelons of human achievement, your time is by extension more valuable and extrapolates out. An hour with the president is worth more than 100 hours with a guy at McDonald's. It's the same. So I think my father raised me by not being there. He raised me by being out there and doing so many fantastic things and being such a fantastic individual that I understood I had a duty to him and a duty to my last name, and I can't be his son and not be fantastic. So I think he raised me in absence. That's what I think he did.
You're proud of yourself that you got there. You won that one.
But I think he did.
That's good. No, that's actually a fair argument. That would be the argument about God's will. That was God's will.
Correct. Yeah.
And so I have to surrender to it, and this is what it is, and my task is to deal with it. And maybe there are feelings you have about it that you don't fully understand, but that's okay.
Yeah.
You know, you're here now, and you're doing your thing, and you're living your life, and it's all good.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, and maybe this will be the last question.
I can go forever, my friend, so you tell me.
We'll see.
And I am, and the reason I wanted to talk to you is because I genuinely did want to learn about myself.
Yeah, I know.
And I do like discussing these things, and like I said, I'm being as vulnerable as I can be. I'm not, if you feel like I'm shielding, I'm truly not trying to.
Well, when we shield, it's so habitual, it's so quick, right? Our defense is, I mean, we become identified with our defenses, so we don't even know when we're doing them.
That's true, but I also feel like the framework that I've instilled, the rational mind, everything is going through this filter. This is how my brain operates. My filter is brutal rationality. That's the filter. So no matter what we're discussing or any conversation we're having, it has to go through this filter, and I end up rationalizing because that's the way I've always functioned.
Of course.
And so I can't turn off that. I can't start saying things that don't make sense to me.
Yes, and what I'm also aware of is that I am bringing my own filter, and you're open to it. You're not closed off to it. You're listening. You're curious about it. So I sense that too, and I appreciate that. You know, you talk about yourself as a man of capability.
Correct.
Man of courage.
Yep.
Right. Man of action.
Yes.
Are you a man of love?
I think a lot of those things come from love. Let's analyze this. I think a lot of those things come from love. I think it's very difficult to do nearly anything important if it's not, perhaps to a degree, driven by love or the desire for love even. I think the reason a lot of men want to become rich is because they want to feel loved or feel important or to matter. I also feel like the reason that a lot of men do the things they do is for love, either of themselves or of someone else. I think the reason men go to work is because they love their family. The reason you go to the gym is because you love yourself. I think that love is a very powerful driving force. I certainly feel love. My world is full of love. Like, I would argue I'm one of the most loved people on the planet. Like, if I check my phone, it's just love.
Yeah.
It's endless emails of people I don't know who love me, endless females who do know me love me, endless pictures of children saying they miss me. Like, I'm a very loved person in a very loved world. I love a lot of people.
You love.
I absolutely love. But because I believe in myself so strongly, I feel like the way I love them is to have a degree of authority over them. Not in a crazy psychopathic way, but in a, I love you, so you should do this.
Right.
I love you, so act this way. I love you, so don't do that. Almost in the same way a parent loves a child. You love your child, so you don't let them eat candy all day, because you love them.
Yeah.
I'm like that with everyone in my life, because I see myself as the most competent person on the planet. So I'm like, I love you, I care about you. You shouldn't do this way.
Right.
Because you may think you know better, but you don't. You don't know better than me. I know best, and this is how it should be for anyone I care about.
I guess the reason I asked the question is, can you defeat the matrix by fighting it? Or can you only defeat the matrix through love?
Absolutely, that's a very astute question, and you're asking because you already know the answer.
And you already know the answer.
Of course, only love can win.
Yeah.
Only love can win.
Yeah.
And it's the most powerful driving force on the face of the planet. It always has been. And it's only when people are going to wake up and have a true love for themselves and love for their community and love for their children and love for these things that we're going to start to resist the evil and the Satanism and the insanity which is coming in the world today. But I believe, as a man at least, your love only has value when you're capable, which is why perhaps I'm so obsessed with capability, because I want my love to have value. We talked about how time has value when you're at a certain echelon. I would also argue that love has value when at a certain echelon. If I'm in love with a girl, she can get a lot more from that love than if a Joe Schmo's in love with her, right? So my love has value because I have value. So I have to build myself, and especially as a man, if you want to feel loved and you want to give love, the more capable you become, the more valuable your love's going to be, and that's certainly how we're going to fix the world. So yeah, the answer is love, of course, but it can't just be blind, empty love. It has to be love that is backed by a brutal, harsh capability, which is born in the worst scenarios you're going to endure as a man. And the world at its baseline is a very brutal place. It can be. And I think that becoming comfortable with those scenarios and becoming capable in those scenarios is how you give your love deep, true value. But I think that, yeah, love is the answer. Right, love is the answer. But I don't want to end, I don't want, love.
It's hard for you to say.
No.
It's like the Fonz.
No, yeah. love, but we have to make this clear because most people misunderstand what love is.
I understand.
No, because you say love is
but
the
not
answer.
coming from you. I don't think they're going to misunderstand it coming from you. And I guess this is it. Like maybe this is it. Maybe this is what people want more from you. Yeah. Right? They want your love. They want to feel your love. I see it. Yeah. Right? Like I can feel it coming off you, but I'm not, like I see your sense of humor. I see how you work. So I don't feel threatened by you, right? I feel like I understand you in some way, but a lot of people can. And I think that to me is the problem in the world right now, is that people cannot feel the Father's love.
I agree with you.
And if they could feel that, and also the firmness, also the direction, all the things you're talking about, the discipline, but if they can't feel the Father's love, I mean, that's God's love coming through. And the Father is the embodiment of God on earth. If they can't feel that love, then we're going to have a lot of fucking problems.
But that's super interesting because they've hijacked the word love now, and they've confused the word love with tolerance and a complete lack of boundaries. And they're saying, if you're a loving person, you accept all this garbage. No, I disagree with that. You just said a very important thing. You said father's love. A father's love comes with tests and trials and tribulations. What does a dad even traditionally do for his son? Take him out there, push him in the pool, let him struggle a bit, get him out. Yeah. Put him on the bike, let him fall over, help him get up. Yeah. You have to go through the bad things to be rewarded and the bad things to learn. That's how a father typically loves. And a father also loves by saying no. Right. No, you cannot do that. So you nailed it by how society needs a father's love. Completely true. And society has actually hijacked the word love and tried to convince you that you don't need the father's love. Perhaps you need this unconditional love, which is more like a mother's love, if you want to gender it, perhaps. Yeah. So it's unconditional. You can act without honor, you can act without courage, you can act without discipline, and you'll be loved anyway just because you exist. I don't believe that for myself. I believe if I remove all of my morality, I will not just be loved by default, not by my family, not by God, not by society. I don't believe that. And the people who do believe that, who think I should be loved just for existing, regardless of how I act and what I think, those are some of the most evil people on the planet. I truly believe. And they're also some of the most unsuccessful and unspectacular. And they're the people who are out here genuinely trying to change society in a direction which has never been tested, which I believe is going to lead down to the depths of hell, truly. I think it's evil. So yeah, I agree with you. Father's love is important, but love in and of itself has boundaries. Love is strict. Love is hard. Yes. Love is a hard emotion.
Fierce.
Love is fierce. Love is not an emotion of, oh, do whatever you want. It's the opposite. Love is, no, you have to do this. I believe love is a very hard, very strong emotion. And if I think of how, let's say I have two women, one I love, one I don't love, and I enjoy both of their company, I'm harder on the one I love. I expect more from her in terms of how she acts. I expect more from her in terms of how she speaks to me. I expect more from her in how she presents herself to the world. The more I love her, the more I expect of her, the more parameters I want to put on her in regards to how she should behave, because I love her. Love is a hard emotion. So yeah, love wins, but not in the way that people think love. They've hijacked the word love and convinced people that love means, oh, I tolerate everything. Right. That's not love.
I agree, and it goes back to this, what we were talking about with presence. I wonder, and I'm just having this thought now, that if we come all the way into presence, if we allow ourselves to be all the way here and feel everything that's here, that is actually the thing that we would feel, love. Like God, which is, you could say God is love. And maybe, that's the scariest thing. That's the edge. Because if we're fully surrendered to that, like we're in that flow state, that is the dissolution of the ego, a letting go of all the things that we have, and we have to be in that place. And so maybe that to me is like, you know, if you want to defeat the Matrix, right? Like if you want to become Neo, I think that's what it is.
Interesting. And what I will do, and I will take away from this conversation, is I definitely have moments of presence. I mean, I'm human. I do have like a couple minutes where I sit and just look around and go, you know, life's not all that bad, of course. But I will perhaps try and dedicate a little bit more time. Maybe I can I'll see if I can allocate 3 minutes instead of 2 towards presence and see how that makes me feel overall. It's interesting that you said when you're present, you feel love. I actually completely agree with that. I can't think of a time I've been present and felt anything other than gratefulness. Just to look around and go, you know what? Everything's fine. In fact, even in jail that happened. Even in jail, I had moments of presence, and I looked around and go, this is not nearly as bad as like the media is saying it is, and the women on the phone are crying, and everyone's panicking. You know what? I'm not in a trench. I'm probably not going to get blown up. If a fire started, could I get through that steel door? If anyone could, it's me. I'm not on a submarine in World War II. There's no depth charges.
Yeah.
I'm not in a car crash.
Yeah.
It's fine. Cup of tea. It's fine. I did have those moments, right? So when you come to a moment, when you come to a moment of presence, even in a terrible scenario, it often ends up love. Yeah. You're right. And I certainly have felt them, and I certainly could do it. My rationale would be, my argument would be, does that make me more powerful? You're arguing it does, and maybe perhaps I need to try it. Whereas I would typically, up until this conversation, I would say, I don't have time for that. I have things to do.
Right.
So that's where it all comes down to. And then it comes down to, like I said earlier, am I here as a human to enjoy my experience as a human and enjoy being in this vessel and have as much fun as possible and be as present as possible? Or am I here to make the biggest impact I can possibly make and build a legacy? And of course, probably, like most things in life, the answer is somewhere in between the two. It's probably some balance. Yeah. Perhaps I'm slightly out of balance, and that's why I am living the life I am. But I'm not unhappy with it. And if I was unhappy with it, it wouldn't change anything. But I actually do consider myself, I do genuinely consider myself one of, because I put no importance on emotion. And when I say that, I try and make people understand that when I say no importance, it doesn't affect how I act. So I don't see the point in talking about it, or I don't see the point in even acknowledging it, because it doesn't affect what I'm going to do for the day. So who cares, right? It doesn't matter if it's sunny or raining. If you're going to go to work, you're going to go to work. So why talk about the weather? So I don't put any importance on emotion. But I would actually call myself one of the happiest people on earth, not because I'm particularly happy, but because I'm just never sad. So if it's never dark, it must be light. If it's never cold, it must be hot. So when I say, I will say I'm one of the happiest people on earth, and people think, oh, he's happy all the time. No, I'm just never sad.
Right.
Never. So if you're never sad, you're always happy. Another thing I'll actually argue, not getting out of this early, not getting out of this easy.
I thought I got away with a win there.
I would actually argue that...
Why are you arguing? What are you arguing?
Because maybe you won't disagree with me. Okay, I would also like to, I will just explain. When we were talking about how I've built my mental model and how I rationalize everything, one of the things I've done when I rationalize is I've changed the boundary of what I believe happy to be. So let's say happiness is this line on this table, right? Most people, this is the full spectrum of human emotion. This is absolute distraught because your parents just died. And this is extremely happy and giddish and you're laughing and jumping around like a child for whatever reason. Most people would probably put happy somewhere up here near the top. Whereas I've just changed that bar. And I've just said, unless I'm truly distraught, unless I'm actually at the point where I can barely speak, let's move happiness down to here. Unless I'm truly distraught and something really bad's happened to me, I've already passed the threshold and I'm just a different level of happy. Now, the more I talk to you, the more I realize that a lot of what I've done are just simply semantic tricks. They're language tricks. I've changed language tricks. If I'm not absolutely distraught, I am some version of happy. Therefore, I'm the happiest man on earth because I'm always some level of happy. It's semantic tricks, but if it works, I mean, it could be a cheap language trick, but if the cheap language trick works, then it's more than a cheap language trick. So I've also changed what I believe happy to be. I think that there's probably 5 or 6 times in your adult life you're going to be unhappy, and the rest of the time you're just a different level of happy. Maybe less happy, more happy, but you're all at some point of happy. If you can speak, you're happy enough, because when you're truly upset, you can't even talk. That's what I believe.
Is that enough?
Is that all I have to say? It's interesting, yeah, because...
So here, you want me to tell you what I noticed?
Sure.
It is hard for you to stay present. Right? Like you come present, and then you go to a thought, you go to an idea, and you talk, and it's very convincing, and it's very persuasive. And you're asserting your worldview, your frame of reality, which, but like sometimes like I lose you there. Like I'm like, where are you? Like there's words, but I can't feel you entirely.
I understand.
You know what I mean? And I want to like feel you more.
I understand.
You know what I mean?
I understand, but I don't think
But just stay with that. Just stay in that. Like don't let your mind go. Just stay in the feeling. Yeah, don't go off with a thought.
So what am I feeling right now?
But just stay with me.
Okay.
Just stay with me and be present in the experience with no words and see what happens.
Sure.
Like something will change in how we relate to each other. Something will soften. Like if you let yourself soften and just be with me.
Yeah.
Right? Which is kind of a weird experience for two men to have.
Yep.
Right? But it's actually what children long for with their father. It's actually what we long for is deeper levels of connection.
Yes.
You just let yourself be here with me and just see what happens.
But then what are we going to talk about?
We don't have to talk about anything. Doesn't it feel good to feel another man? Like just to feel the strength, like without the words, without that layer of thought and dialogue and discussion? Come back.
I'm thinking.
Come back.
But
Don't think.
But I have to.
You don't have to. Just be here. This is the place you get to when you're fighting. It feels good.
It's true, but
Doesn't it feel good?
Yes, but there's an action involved. Like I can feel everything about the person I'm fighting, whether it's good or bad. I can feel if I've hurt them or not.
Feel me.
I don't get to punch you, my friend.
You don't.
It's been good fun, and I feel like I've learned some things, and I feel like we need to do it again.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was fun. I appreciate you, man.
Thank you, bro.
Yeah.
Thank you.